Imagine giving an ancient Roman a smartphone. Not a random Roman, a respectable Roman. Let's call him Marcus. Marcus has a toga, a good reputation, strong opinions, and the kind of confidence only a man with no indoor plumbing can have. Within 24 hours, Marcus would be banned from every social media platform on Earth. Not temporarily suspended, banned. His appeal would be denied. His backup account would be banned. His third account, Real Marcus Official, would be flagged before he finished uploading his profile picture. And the worst part? Marcus would have no idea what he did wrong, because by Roman standards, he was normal. Rome gave us roads, law, aqueducts, architecture, urban planning, and a shocking number of daily habits that would make a modern person whisper, "Who raised you?" So today, we're following Marcus through one normal Roman day to understand why ancient Rome was one of the most impressive civilizations in history, and also a complete community guidelines violation. First problem, Marcus wakes up and goes to the bathroom. And this is where the empire immediately becomes unserious. In modern life, the bathroom is private. You go in, lock the door, avoid eye contact with existence itself, and come out pretending nothing happened. In ancient Rome, Marcus walks into a public latrine, sits down next to a senator, a merchant, and a man named Lucius who definitely talks too much, and starts networking. Roman public toilets were often communal. No little stalls, no awkward music, no pretending you're checking your phone. Just men sitting side by side discussing politics, business, gossip, and probably complaining about taxes. This was LinkedIn, but with worse seating. Imagine accepting a business proposal from a man making direct eye contact with you from 3 seats away. "Marcus, I love your idea about importing olive oil." "Thank you, Senator. I'm currently at my most vulnerable, but I appreciate your support." And then there was the famous shared sponge on a stick, a cleaning tool, shared by multiple people. Marcus would post one innocent video titled "My Morning Routine," and the internet would collapse into a digital riot. The comments would be like, "Bro invented the opposite of hygiene. Delete this. Rome fell for a reason." And Marcus would reply, "Actually, this is very civilized," which would make it worse. But Marcus is not done, because after the bathroom, he goes to the baths. The Roman bathhouse was not just a place to get clean. It was the gym, the spa, the business lounge, the gossip center, the political campaign office, and the place where old men gave unsolicited life advice while floating in warm water. Romans went there constantly. They exercised, relaxed, made deals, met friends, argued politics, got massages, bought snacks, and probably judged each other's sandals. It was basically Instagram, a gym selfie, a networking event, and a comment section. But wet. Marcus would absolutely post bathhouse content every day. Morning routine at the baths. 5 things every Roman man needs to dominate his day. Cold plunge changed my mindset. He would have a podcast called Empire Grindset. Every episode would begin with, "Gentlemen, the problem with modern Rome is discipline." Meanwhile, he has been sitting in hot water for 3 hours gossiping about his neighbor. And somehow, this was a normal Tuesday. Now let's talk about entertainment, because this is where Marcus would get banned, demonetized, and possibly called into a meeting. Romans loved gladiators, but not casually. They had favorite fighters. They had fan loyalty. They argued about styles. They bought merchandise. Gladiators appeared on household objects, art, and souvenirs. Some gladiators were celebrities, which means ancient Rome had sports fans, celebrity crushes, merchandise drops, and parasocial relationships, without the internet. Which is terrifying because it means we cannot blame Wi-Fi for this behavior. Roman gladiator fans were basically the original comment section. One guy would say, "My favorite gladiator is the best." Another guy would say, "Actually, if you understood technique." And suddenly, 2 grown men are arguing for 6 hours about a man with a helmet. Marcus would have a gladiator reaction channel. Today we're breaking down the top 5 arena moments that changed Roman history. His thumbnail would be insane. His title would be worse. And by episode 3, he'd be yelling, "The referee was paid by Carthage!" Which brings us to Roman medicine. Roman medicine was fascinating because it included real observation, practical treatments, surgical knowledge, and serious attempts to understand the body. But it also included the most dangerous ingredient in human history: confidence. Roman doctors were often extremely sure. Not always correct, but extremely sure. And honestly, that tradition survived. You can still find a man online today saying, "Doctors don't want you to know this," while standing next to a blender and a plant he found near a gas station. Marcus would run a Roman wellness account. His posts would be like, "Feeling tired? Try wine, herbs, sunlight, and blaming your internal fluids. Anxiety? Have you considered moving to a villa? Headache? This remedy has been used by my family for generations, and only half of them complained." Every third post would get flagged. Marcus would respond with a 14-part thread carved into a wall. "Dear fact-checkers, I studied under a man who once met Galen in a market, so respectfully, you are wrong." And the comments would say, "Marcus, please stop giving medical advice." He would not stop. Now, to be fair, Romans were not stupid. They were brilliant in many ways. They observed, recorded, experimented, and built systems that influenced the world. But they were also human, and humans have always had one weakness: a confident man with a theory. Next, food. Because Roman elite banquets were not meals, they were content. Rich Romans hosted elaborate dinner parties to show status, wealth, taste, connections, and the important message, "I am richer than you, and now you must watch me eat sideways." Yes, Romans often reclined while eating, which, honestly, is the one Roman habit I am willing to defend. Modern society abandoned horizontal dining, and I think we need answers. But elite Roman banquets could get ridiculous. They served rare foods, expensive dishes, exotic ingredients, and meals designed less for hunger and more for flexing. This was not dinner. This was a luxury influencer post with better architecture. Marcus would absolutely have a food channel. At first, normal content. Trying traditional Roman bread. Then the algorithm would reward him, so he escalates. Eating like a senator for 24 hours. Then, my most expensive banquet yet. Then, I served 19 courses and my guests looked afraid. By the end, Marcus is reclining on a couch, staring directly at the camera, saying, "The flavor profile is actually very subtle," while everyone behind him is silently begging to go home. And somehow this was fine dining. But nothing would get Marcus banned faster than Roman politics. Ancient Rome did not have social media. It had walls. And Romans used those walls exactly how humans use comment sections. Pompeii preserved thousands of pieces of graffiti. Political slogans, jokes, insults, love notes, campaign messages, and people writing things that prove humans have always needed supervision. Romans carved opinions into public spaces, which is social media, but with more commitment. Today, you post something dumb and delete it. In Rome, you carved it into a wall and made archaeologists read it 2,000 years later. Roman politics was brutal. Public speeches, insults, reputation attacks, alliances, betrayals, rumors, dramatic accusations, basically Twitter/X, but everyone wore sandals and the stakes were occasionally the Republic. Cicero, one of Rome's greatest speakers, was so good at verbally destroying enemies that historians still study his speeches. This man did not subtweet. He stood in public and delivered a full cinematic reputation execution with footnotes. Marcus would be extremely online. He would post, "Rome is declining because young people don't respect tradition." Then someone would reply, "Marcus, you cried at a banquet in 62 BC. And Marcus would lose his mind. He'd write a 4,000-word response. Someone would carve a meme onto a wall. Marcus would hold a public speech about the meme. The Senate would get involved. And somehow, the original argument was about bathhouse sandals. This is the real lesson of ancient Rome. They were not strange because they were stupid. They were strange because every society has its own version of normal. Rome feels close to us because Romans had cities, apartments, takeout food, celebrities, politics, gossip, sports fans, status anxiety, influencers, public drama, and men giving advice nobody asked for. That sounds familiar. But then you remember the group toilets, and the shared sponge, and the political graffiti carved into walls. And suddenly Rome feels like a civilization built by geniuses who also desperately needed a group chat moderator. So yes, ancient Romans would be banned from social media. Marcus would be reported before breakfast, restricted by lunch, appeal denied by dinner, and by midnight he'd be carving a 12-part apology statement into the nearest wall. And the apology would make things worse. Marcus, if you're watching this, you've been banned from the comment section of this video too. We're sorry. We're not sorry. Because Rome did not have the internet, which was lucky, because if they did, the empire wouldn't have fallen from invasion, economics, politics, or corruption. It would have collapsed after Marcus posted, "Hot take, public toilets build community." If you want more history that sounds completely fake but somehow isn't, subscribe. Because next time, we're proving that humans have always been weird. We just used to carve it into stone.